told me that those days were gone. Now I'm sitting here going half crazy, 'cause I know she still thinks about me too. And it ain't no way that I can be just friends with you. And I wish we never won't let me leave. I got a problem tonight. Ooh, even if I did, I don't know if I would quit, but I doubt it. I'm taking mother thought from me. Hey. And I know this much is true. Baby, you have become my addiction. I'm so strung out on you. Strung out on you. Baby, move. But I like it. It's all because of you. It's all because of you. It's all because of you. It's all because never get enough. She's the sweetest drug. No doubt. Strung out love. This is hey, only you. There can be one only you and baby, God can never make two. Nah, nah, nah. And I know you can't be with your crew. But I promise you that it feels like it's just us two. Oh, I don't know what you had planned to do tonight, but I just wanna be the one to do you right. And we're standing here looking at each other, baby, eye to eye. And I'm hoping that you're thinking about leaving with me tonight. You said you came for love in the club, 'cause I wanna tell them they wrong. Come on, just baby, try a new thing, and let's spark a new flame. You gon' be my baby, love me crazy. Tell me if you ready, I'm a boss, I'm talking George Steinbrenner, Panamera, Yogi Berra, my two-seater, Derek Jeter, got more stripes than all these niggas, babe, who ballin' in the Beamer, collar on my polo, kisses on my necklace, all my diamonds watching, now my watch is getting jealous, smoking on the bomb in my autograph LeBron's, yeah, she told me I'm the one, that's when I only hit it once. Keep rocking and keep knocking. Whether you Louboutin it up or Reebokin, you see the hate that they serving on a platter. So what we gon' have, dessert or dessert?
I never thought I'd be in love like this. When I look at you, my mind goes on a trip. Then you came in and knocked me on my face. Feels like I'm in a race, but I already won first place. I never thought I'd fall for you as hard as I did. You got me thinking about our life, our house, and kids. Yeah, every morning I look at you and smile. 'Cause boy, you came around and you knocked me down, knocked me down. Sometimes love comes around and it knocks you down. Just get back up when it knocks you down, knocks you down. Sometimes love comes around and it knocks you down. Just get back up when it knocks you down, knocks you down.
I never thought I'd hear myself say, y'all go ahead. I think I'm gonna kick it with my girl today. I used to be commander-in-chief on my pimp ship, flying high. Till I met this pretty little miss, shot me out the sky. Hate to know I'm crashing, don't know how it happened, but I know it feels so damn good. Said if I could go back and make it happen faster, don't you know I would, baby, if I could. Miss independent to the fullest, the load never too much. She helping me fully, she shot the bullet, that ended that life. I swear to you, the pimpin' me just died tonight, 'cause sometimes love, oh, it comes around.
When it knocks you down,
When it knocks you down.
sometimes love comes around and it knocks you down. Just get back up when it knocks you down, knocks you down.
Tell me now, can you make it past your Caspers so we could finally fly off into NASA? You was always the cheerleader of my dreams, the scene to only date the head of football teams, and I was the class clown that always kept you laughing. We will never miss it.
Hi, my name is Kathy, and Susan and I, Heather's mother, Susan and I, have been best friends for quite a while, and we are so close that we call each other sisters. So I've been asked to welcome each and every one of you here today. We are here to remember Heather Heyer and to say goodbye. Some of us are here as family. Some of us are friends, old and new. Some are co-workers, but that's more like family to Heather. And some of us are just here out of respect for a young woman who lost her life defending the rights of people. And I would like for us to carry her legacy on by doing the same thing, respecting the rights of everyone. The family is humbled and deeply grateful for the outreach and the outpouring of love from the community and generosity. We especially need to thank the J.F. Bell Funeral Services, the Paramount, the Space Downtown, Albemarle Limousine, and the police department who have kept us all secure today. At this time, Elwood Schrader, Heather's grandfather, is going to share some remembrances.
I'd like to repeat that we thank you for coming. We're absolutely in awe at this outpouring of affection. Let me hurry on to say that I'm here to speak of Heather's childhood, for I knew her quite well. She lived in our home for some years. In her younger years, I've rocked her to sleep many times, and sometimes we went to sleep together in the chair. I sang to her. I made up little songs at times. I wish I had some of those recorded. They were truly silly, but it didn't matter to Heather. She loved them. I've read to her many, many times. I've listened to tapes with her. We were close. And she, like her brother, loved to be carried in a backpack. Oh, what exuberance in that backpack. Little legs flailing. Many times she knocked off my hat or pushed it down over my eyes. I'll never forget those times. She could reach around and get your hat and swing it and wave it. And I think she experimented with Newton's law of gravity quite often. We had a good time with that. Nick, before her, had loved that backpack. So we walked a good bit. She showed her passion at an early age. You didn't know her as a child, most of you. You only knew her as an adult and saw the passion in her. But at an early age, she could call out something that didn't seem right to her. As I taught in nursery school one time, my wife was asked to go pick up Heather that evening because Susan had to work late. And when she showed up, the attendant, the one taking care of her, said, "Heather, your grandma's here." Heather stamped her foot, got indignant, and that little tot went tottering across the floor. She said, "She's not a grandma. Grandmas walk like this. She's Nana." And Nana she was, too. She called me Granddaddy, but the way she said it then, I'll never forget, and we teased about it. I was Grandaddy. Sometimes I signed cards to her that way down through the years just for a laugh. In earlier years, she wanted fairness. She wanted justice. She wanted everybody to get equal respect. And with an older brother, that got tough because older brothers are going to get more privileges, you see. And she watched that like a hawk, and she'd call you out, why can't I do that? Why can't I have that privilege? Why does he get to do it? And we had a lot of fiery discussions. And she wanted to understand your viewpoint. It didn't seem right to her, but she insisted on knowing your viewpoint. And I think you saw some of that. So we talked and we discussed, and we had many questions and answers, but sometimes I couldn't come up with answers. She was pretty sharp. How ironic that she ended up in a law office of all things. Discussion with passion, hands waving. If you knew Heather well, you knew that she couldn't talk without both hands in motion. It was an adventure to see her come home from school and tell you about the day's happenings. In fact, it got so animated that we four would quit eating so often and watch her as she stood up at the corner of the dining room table, waving hands and almost dancing as she told you something that happened that day. She loved life. She was entertaining to watch as she grew up. You never knew what was coming next. Yes, that same drive, that same passion, that same desire for justice, I think we saw it all through her life. She wanted respect for everybody. In our family, all lives matter. And she absorbed that quite well, as did her mother before her and her brother. And she realized we all need forgiveness, and we all must extend forgiveness. As we think about her today, we're very proud of her. I'm proud of our whole family. My wife and I are very proud of Susan, Nick, and Heather. As I think about this, I think of Trevi's song and Fiddler on the Roof. The little girl. Is this the little girl I carried? Yes, I think so. That same passion was beyond childhood. That same passion, that same girl, you've met her. You who knew her as an adult, you know her too. She was a lady of happiness and great joy, and realized that all lives matter. Let me again say how much we appreciate what this whole community has done for us. You are truly honoring Heather and our family. My wife and I deeply appreciate that. Bless you. Next is Mark Heyer, Heather's father.
no father should have to do this. But I love my daughter. And as I look out on you guys, you loved her too. She was kind of hard that way. It's hard not to love. I want to tell a short story of when she was about 9. I came from Louisiana. Her mom came from Virginia, and my folks came up from Florida, and we went to a cabin, and we spent a few days together. And the evening was about to get a little chilly, and her mom told her to put a sweater on because we were going to the pool. Well, actually, I kind of agreed with Heather. She didn't want to put the sweater on. But she defied her mom, and her mom said, "We're not going to the pool unless you put the sweater on." Well, for the next 2 hours, Heather decided that she knew better at 9 and defied her mom. Well, the only thing I could do was go sit in the room with her. I couldn't cross her mom. And to this day, I don't remember how that turned out, but I don't really remember. All I remember is Heather's passion. Heather's passion extended to her ideas, her thoughts. Her grandfather was right. She could tell if somebody wasn't being straight, and she'd call you on it. And like a father and daughter relationship, we don't always agree. And Susan expressed to me that, yeah, along with me and everybody else, she would argue if she thought it was appropriate. Even if she didn't think it was appropriate, she would tell you what she thought. And as I listened and to her friends, and hear stories of my daughter and the way she was. She loved people. She wanted equality. And in this issue of the day of her passing, she wanted to put down hate. And for my part, we just need to stop all this stuff and just forgive each other. I think that's what the Lord would want us to do, is to stop, just love one another. I came here today and I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed at the rainbow of colors in this room. That's how Heather was. It didn't matter who you were or where you were from. If she loved you, that was it. You were stuck. So for that, I'm truly proud of my daughter. That's as far as I've gotten. Next will be Reverend Harold Bear.
Relax, not a sermon. It is true that I am a pastor. I do not typically go by the title of Reverend. I go by the title of pastor normally. There are two purposes for a memorial service. First is to appreciate and to cherish memories of a loved one. And the second is for us to consider the value of such occasions as this, what value is added to us for the journey that remains for our individual lives. Matthew 6 and 9, the disciples said to Jesus, "Teach us to pray, that we may know how to live on earth and prepare for eternity." And Jesus answered, "Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And it is this prayer that we would pray would be effected in our hearts today, here, that we may know how to live on earth. Now, context is important. As I have said, I am a pastor. I'm one of the senior pastors in terms of tenure in the city. One of the other speakers and I, Dr. Alvin Edwards, we have both been here 36 years each. Heather visited Covenant Church several times, which is the reason why her mother, Susan, asked that I speak today. And I said, Susan, please give me some boundaries. She said, speak about diversity. So if you will allow me, I will share with you in context my comments of what Heather saw at Covenant Church and what has transpired in 36 years and why I would talk about diversity in the way that I shall do so. My role in this community came about as I became a graduate student, a doctoral graduate student at the University of Virginia in sociology, and much was I surprised to find that upon completing residency, we were to become pastors. Our congregation was a modest size, one color, totally, absolutely. I came to the conclusion, being a sociologist, after my studies, that Jesus was the greatest sociologist of all times. He understood social movements, small groups, cultures, diversity like no one else. In fact, the Sermon on the Mount is the finest piece of literature covering known history until the time of Jesus to summarize social issues. So my decision was, as a pastor, to implement the teachings of Jesus. So we established certain principles that I hold dear and that we hold dear, and what Heather would have experienced in coming to Covenant. All humanity is family, created by God. In fact, Romans 14:7 says, no man is created or made by himself, and no man dies to himself. Such a testimony today that Heather's passing is acknowledged not just by you, but by millions and millions of people around the world. 2, all life is equally valuable, regardless of race, culture, color, or social class. Ezekiel 18:4, behold, all souls are mine, saith God. 3, when hearing a matter, be sure you wait to hear the other side before you make a decision. That is Proverbs 18:17. 4, if you have a problem with someone, first go to them before telling anyone else. That's Matthew 18:15. Now, believe in everyone, believe the best in everyone. And that's Matthew 6. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, keeping the beam out of our own eye before we criticize others. 6, remember that the cross is common ground where our rights are surrendered to serve God and others. So the journey of 36 years brings us to a present moment where 76 national flags hang in our sanctuary and more than 20 nations gather on a Sunday morning. I do not know the total number of tribes that attend Covenant Church. One nation did have 5 different tribes attending at the same time. Now, this is the diversity that Heather saw. Can you imagine a person, if I speak about diversity, and this is what you might hear me say from the pulpit on a Sunday morning at Covenant Church. Can you imagine a person in our city going to the University of Virginia Hospital or Martha Jefferson, both of which I consider to be world-class medical facilities, and needing plasma or a heart transplant and saying, and who is the donor? Can you imagine having a brain tumor and getting to the hospital and saying, excuse me, I want to know who the doctors are, the color, and the culture? If you had a brain tumor, I think you would say, who's the best doctor? Who is the best doctor in the house? Jesus practiced diversity. He chose a motley crew of disciples, extremely different in personality, giftedness, and skills. Yet he molded them into a formidable force that changed the world. And my prayer is that this moment of sadness may bring us to a higher appreciation of our need for each other, and may the God who made us transform us into servants with humility to not only give of our best to the Master, but to each other. May diversity be defined in relation to Jesus and his teaching, and as for me and my house, our best service to you and our city, our nation and our world is to share the love of Jesus with others, regardless of whether they look, talk, dress, act, or eat what we do. Covenant Church is one of the most aggressive churches in the community in working with refugees. So I would say to you, to the family, first of all, Susan, thank you for allowing me to share. Second, I would hope that you would absolutely, with all the energy that's within you, appreciate the diversity of mankind, and that you would do everything you can do to make peace. And thank you so much for allowing me to share about Heather's experience with diversity at Covenant Church. Denise Radcliffe Kennedy, a cousin, now comes to speak.
I picked a poem to adapt for today. The original poem is We Remember Them by Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jack Reimer. At the rising sun and its going down, we remember Heather. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember her. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of the summer, we remember her. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of the autumn, we remember her. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. As long as we live, Heather too will live. For she is now a part of us, we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember her. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember her. When we have achievements that are based on hers, we remember her. For as long as we live, she too will live, for Heather is now a part of us as we remember her. May our memories of Heather be a comfort to us all. Diana Ratcliffe will be next.
I'm going to be sharing a letter that I wrote to Heather about all the things that I wish I would have said before today. Dear Heather, did I ever tell you about my earliest memory of you? Just an image of you, a whirling dervish with bouncy brown curls in Mama and Papa's kitchen? Did I tell you that your smile was infectious and that your eyes glittered and laughed? Did I tell you that you come from a long line of stubborn and passionate women? The qualities of a toddler that would drive any parent crazy, but those qualities turned you into an independent and compassionate woman. Your compassion. Did I ever tell you how much I admired the woman you became? You always saw the good in other people. People I would have cut out of my life, but you refused to give up on them. Your patience was heroic. Your courage. You never had a problem having the conversation or saying what needed to be said, even when it was uncomfortable. Your conviction. You didn't let other people tell you how to think, how to feel, how to behave. Did I ever tell you how much you taught me? That you don't have to be a world leader, Nobel Prize winner, or CEO to change the world. Just be one person willing to show compassion to another. Did I ever tell you how much I loved you? Heather, when my children ask me who I admire most, I will tell them you, my baby cousin, who is larger than life and too good for this world. You are in a better place now, where there is no pain, no sadness, no hunger, and no hate. You might not be with us anymore, but you will always be in our hearts. Love always, Diana. I'd like to introduce Veda Khatib-Wilson, a friend of Heather's.
I am normally not one to speak in front of a group of people, but today I felt like I owed it to Heather. Heather was a wonderful person. She was not just a coworker; she was a friend. I just wanted to share a few moments that we had together. I worked in the office with Heather, and everyone that knows Heather knows she is not a morning person. That was like her worst thing. And she would come in the morning and be like, "Good morning, Heather." And mind you, she comes in at 10. So she'd go straight and get her coffee, because that was really important. We all wanted Heather to have her coffee. But she just was a wonderful soul. She would get to work and stay after, come on the weekends. We all admired her commitment to her job, just to life in general. She was a real person, and everyone that knows her knows that she cursed like a sailor sometimes. And my office is right outside the printer, and I could hear her going off, and something was jammed or something didn't print out, and she'd look at me and she's like, "Sorry," and I was like, "That's fine." But it was an everyday thing. Her and that printer just were enemies. We will all continue to have sleepless nights, and our pain will eventually fade away, but our memory of Heather will forever live on. And I just wrote a little something that I wanted to share. I'm sorry, Heather, that it ended this way, that terrible, horrible Saturday. That devastating phone call that we didn't want to believe was true, and the aches in our heart of hearing what happened to you. There must have been a mistake, I kept on saying to myself as I entered the doors at UVA, and the numbness in my body and the words that I couldn't speak. Standing there listening but not actually hearing, the inner child in me crying but my adult self fearing. How could this happen like in the world today? After all those marches that ended in violence, and all those verdicts that ended in rage, and all the hate crimes that go unsolved, when is this so-called change ever going to change? So I'm so sorry, Heather. Sorry that you cared so much. Maybe if you didn't stand up, or you didn't speak so loudly, maybe if you weren't so bold, that they wouldn't have heard you and you would still be here. Now your desk will be empty and your coffee cup will sit there untouched. Folder on top of folder, but your fingers will never flip those pages, and you will not utter a single name. It will never be the same. But I want to thank you, Heather, for all your passion, for all of your talks, for all of your smiles, for believing that this world can change and trying to make that happen. Thank you for making the word hate real. but thank you for making the word love even stronger. Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Alfred Wilson. I was Heather's supervisor, but most of all, I ended up becoming even stronger feeling she was my close friend. Um, Quite often, she and I used to joke because I would say she was my office wife. um, I say that because a lot of people would tell you in the office, and she even told my own wife and my own kids that she hated me sometimes. um, but our beginning was kind of interesting and very humble in a way because Heather first came to our office 5 years ago. And when I sat down to interview her, as I was talking to her, she looked around the office and she pointed out to me, hey, I just have a high school degree. I'm just a waitress. I've never worked in the office before. She's like, I don't know how to type, but I'll do my best. And I asked her, how does she do with her tips? And she told me she did really well with her tips, actually. Asked her to tell me a story about one of the customers that come in. She told me about a story where one of the customers came in and she listened to him. So as I listened to her talk to me, I said, you need to come work for me. She said, but I don't know anything about the legal system. I don't know anything about bankruptcy. I said, well, that's what I'm here for. So she came and worked for us. And did she ever come and work for us? I mean, Heather basically just sat back and just became this sponge. Everything that I would tell her or talk to her about with the bankruptcy code, she absorbed it. She went to classes that I sent her to. She studied it on her own. But the most amazing part of it was just watching her interact with clients. And that was the piece that I basically was seeing when I looked at her in the interview. She cared about everyone she spoke to. She listened to everyone she spoke to. And she took at heart everything that they had to say. One time I was just passing by her desk and she was talking to a client. And it was kind of interesting because the client worked at UVA, was a professor. The wife worked at UVA Hospital. So both of them probably made 4 or 5 times more than Heather. And they both were kind of embarrassed about what was going on, that they were having to come to her to file bankruptcy. And she held their hand and said, well, Alfred always tells me to remember one of us could be on the other side of the table. So I could easily be you interviewing me. So it didn't bother her that, yeah, they were professors. It was Heather. Heather, she was an amazing woman. All too often, my wife and I would say our youngest daughter reminded us of Heather. Because my youngest daughter, oh my God, she makes me feel like choking myself sometimes. But but that's Heather as well. But I mean, she would talk back to me, talking about my youngest daughter and Heather. When I would say yes, Heather would say no, and my youngest daughter would do the same. When I would think I had the right answer, Heather would give me a different answer, and my youngest daughter would do the same thing. But the thing is, Heather would always have that fight and that compassion in her. And those times that I was upset and was working late because I was bothered by something that happened in court or with a trustee, guess who stayed late with me? Heather. She would come in there and give me a hug and see if there's something she could do. Maybe nothing she could do because she knew nothing about what I did on what we call the back end of the process. But she would be there. Want to tell you a little story that happened one time that it's probably about 2 years ago. Heather had a friend she was seeing, and I knew she had been seeing him for a little while. And one night, Heather and I had worked late, probably about to 8:30, and we were walking out of the office. As we walked out and said bye, her friend was sitting out there waiting for her. And then I come the next day, Heather was kind of a little upset. And I was wondering what was wrong. She said her and her friend got in an argument. And I was like, what's wrong? And she said, well, when you came out the office, my friend saw you. And I'm like, okay. And I told her that you were my boss. And he was like, you never told me you worked for a black man. And he was like, what difference does that make? And she, basically she sat there and told me she didn't have a friend anymore because she broke up with him. So it was more important for her that she basically, somebody she knew that would stand by her, me, and didn't care who she was. I didn't care that she had only a high school degree, but she cared enough about me as a person that she stood up for, even in her own personal relationship. It took a lot of strength for her to do something like that. I mean, as far as she knows, the next day I could have decided to fire her. Now she didn't have a boyfriend and she didn't have a job. but Heather, she was always there for everyone. I mean, staff that came through the office, the ladies in the office, they had this unique bond. And that's one of the things, if any of you could ever come to our office, we were like family. All of us, after hours, would sit there and have a couple drinks. We would have laughs with each other. We hugged each other. To sit and think at, one of our staff that actually was there with Heather the day of the crash, had watched her have a baby, watching her kids grow up. Heather's watched my children grow up. And now she's going to have to look down from heaven and watch them. But I know Heather, and I told myself I wouldn't get upset, but this is not working. But I'm proud of Heather. This woman came to me and she didn't believe that how good she was. She always constantly tried to remind me, I'm just a waitress. And I was like, no, you're not a waitress. You are a paralegal. You're damn good at your job. So good that my email all week has been blowing up. It was all weekend. I kept getting these emails and I just knew we done screwed something up with court or something's going on. But it was actually people emailing. We had a guy come by the office yesterday, and I'm so used to people dropping in our office and they always tell us they got problems. And this guy just sat there and he's waiting. And I'm like, okay, here's another problem on this day. And he came in there. He was a client 3 years ago. And he said when he heard about Heather and his wife wanted to come by just to express how important she was to them. So he explained to me how Heather relaxed them, got them to understand what they were going through, and basically made them feel like it was a good decision. He took it out of his day, middle of his day, to take off from work just to come there to tell us Heather was that important. I printed off like 2 emails that I wanted to read to you guys because and I asked these clients, could I read them to you? Mr. Wilson, this message from Ashley. I would like to send our condolences to your firm. Heather was such a sweet person. Miss Heather, always kind, friendly, helpful in any way possible. She, in my eyes, is a hero. And hopefully all of this madness can stop. and hopefully we can make Heather smile. Thanks for your help, Mr. Wilson. This one client sent this, and I actually ended up started crying at my computer. Said, tonight, Mr. Wilson, my heart sunk and tears flowed. Casey and I worked with Heather when we came to your group to seek help for filing Chapter 13 bankruptcy in 2015. We felt hopeless when we arrived, but I remember Heather running your front office like a queen. She knew her work. She performed it well. Heather left a true impact on me and my husband. We were your clients. I can only imagine the pain and the sorrow that your office may be feeling this Monday morning. A true void, a senseless act of evil, crime, an act of terrorism took Heather home. I'm so saddened for everyone that knew Heather, and I'm praying that the family and her friends and her workers will truly be able to heal from Heather. We'll miss her. Heather, like I said, Heather touched our clients every day. She was the one person in our office that touched every single file in our office. Not just one file, but every file had to come through Heather. They touched her hands, every single one of them. And as Heather would sit there and tell me and she got what I was teaching her about, but if you really look at a file the right way, you can see what happens in a person's life. You see a whole bunch of credit card debt, and you see 3 kids. You know they cared about their kids and spent way too much money that they're supposed to. You've seen a whole lot of medical bills down there. You know that they had some kind of pain, something that happened. And Heather would be sympathetic to that. She would basically tell me that before I would even walk in there to see him. Alfred, this lady had breast cancer. You need to be mindful of that aspect of it. She cared about little things like that. I pray and ask that our world somehow, some way, can sit here and feel that love that she had. I mean, she believed in each and every one of us. She saw the good in everyone. Even the times when she said she hated me, she would still turn around and come hug me within 5 minutes later. I thank all of you for coming out here. I've been truly blessed, and when I say truly blessed, I've been truly blessed to know Heather. I've been truly blessed to know her mother, her stepfather, Kim. I mean, these are like really good people. I mean, my tire went bad on my brakes went bad on my car, and this dude back hurt, can't do anything. What does Heather do? She calls him up and he comes and fixes my truck. Why? Because she loves Heather. I know that. Heather told her I was good, so it means I must be a good person as far as they were concerned. They would drop the hat for anything, and so I know that's where Heather got it from. It's from her parents. I would ask any of you, take time for the next few days, for the rest of your life, and please just reach out your hand to somebody you don't know. Touch them. Tell them thank you. Tell them hi. Do something that I did the other day, just thinking about Heather. I was in McDonald's drive-thru, and I told them that I'm paying for the lunch for the people behind me. I don't know who it was behind me, but I just knew Heather would care enough to sit there, and she just helped everybody. So maybe do something as simple as that. Buy the lunch for the next person behind you. Don't acknowledge it, because then you're trying to take credit for it. And that's something Heather never did. She never sat there and took credit for what she did good. She just did it because it's supposed to be. Thank you. Next, we have Heather's mother.
but I will be all right. My child's famous Facebook post was, "If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention." She paid attention. She made a lot of us pay attention. Oh my gosh, dinner with her, we knew was going to be an ordeal of listening and conversation and perhaps disagreement, but it was going to happen. And so my husband would say, "Okay, I'm going to go out in the car and play on my video game for a while." And we would sit and would grill. And she and I would talk, and I would listen. And we would negotiate, and I would listen. And we talked about all this stuff. We talked about politics. We talked about anything that caught her eye that she felt was fair, unfair. She'd talk about her feelings about the office and how things were going. I mean, she just talked. The girl loved to talk. And she was single, so there was nobody listening at home, so Mama got a lot of it. And that was wonderful. You never think you're going to bury your child. You never think to take those pictures. They asked me for pictures for this, and I struggled. I had pictures from her childhood, but I had to go to Facebook to find pictures of my child because we were always together. I saw her a couple times a month at least, and we would text each other fairly often, and we would Facebook message at bedtime, "I love you. I love you. You doing okay? Yep, I love you." So I have no regrets on that part. Take pictures of the ones that you love because you don't know when they're not going to be there. But here's what I want to say to you today. This could be a storm in a teacup, and it could all be for nothing. I could have said, let's don't do this publicly. Let's have a small private funeral. But, that's not who Heather was. Anybody who knew Heather said, yep, this is the way she had to go, big and large. Had to have the world involved because that's my child. She's just that way. Always has been, and she will continue to be. Because here's the message. Although Heather was a caring and compassionate person, so are a lot of you. A lot of you go that extra mile. And I think the reason that what happened to Heather has struck a chord is because we know that what she did is achievable. We don't all have to die. We don't all have to sacrifice our lives. They tried to kill my child to shut her up. Well, guess what? You just magnified her. Thank you. Thank you. So here's what I want to happen. You ask me, what can I do? So many caring people, pages of pages of pages of stuff I'm going through. I'm reading pages of pages of pages, how she's touching the world. I want this to spread. I don't want this to die. This is just the beginning of Heather's legacy. This is not the end of Heather's legacy. You need to find in your heart that small spark of accountability. What is there that I can do to make the world a better place? What injustice do I see and want to turn away? I don't really want to get involved in that. I don't want to speak up. They'll be annoyed with me. My boss might think less of me. I don't care. You poke that finger at yourself like Heather would have done, and you make it happen. You take that extra step. You find a way to make a difference in the world. My child had a high school education. My child was no saint. She was hard to raise because everything was a negotiation. Not kidding. But you know what? She was a firm believer in whatever she believed. And let's do that. Let's find that spark of conviction. Let's find in ourselves that action. Let's spread this. Let's have the uncomfortable dialogue. It ain't easy sitting down and saying, well, why are you upset? It ain't easy sitting down and going, yeah, well, I think this way, and I don't agree with you. but I'm going to respectfully listen to what you have to say. We're not going to sit around and shake hands and go kumbaya. And I'm sorry, it's not all about forgiveness. I know that that's not a popular trend. But the truth is, we are going to have our differences. We are going to be angry with each other. But let's channel that anger not into hate, not into violence, not into fear, but let's channel that difference, that anger, into righteous action. Right now, down the road, there's a blood drive going on in Heather's name. Right now, there are people who are here willing to listen to one another and talk to one another. Last night in New England, they had a peaceful rally in Heather's name to have some difficult dialogues. If you ever want to see what one of those dialogues look like, look at her Facebook post. I'm telling you, they were rough sometimes, but they were dialogues, and the conversations have to happen. That's the only way we're going to carry Heather's spark through. So remember in your heart, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And I want you to pay attention, find what's wrong, don't ignore it, don't look the other way. You make a point to look at it and say to yourself, what can I do to make a difference? And that's how you're going to make my child's death worthwhile. I'd rather have my child, but by golly, if I got to give her up, we're going to make it count.
How befitting to have the song Amazing Grace to be sung. This is a song that was written by John Newton, but my understanding also is that it was moaned in the belly of a slave ship that was owned by John Newton, seeing the intermixing of the good things, the hard things that come together and can make something as beautiful as Amazing Grace. So you're going to hear some sounds. I want you to just imagine yourself on that ship, the things that are going and happening right now. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers
toils and snares I have already come. 'Twas grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Hallelujah, hallelujah, oh man, hallelujah, hallelujah, oh man.
To the Reed family and to all the friends who assembled here, there is a verse that appears in the 90th Psalm, verse 12. It says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom." This particular psalm is ascribed to Moses. It is identified as the prayer of Moses. And it's obvious from the prayer that it was a quest, or maybe I should say a request, to ask God for some assistance and help to live. It was not just for Moses himself, but it was for the people of Israel. But what's interesting about this particular psalm, and is the focus of my words today as we celebrate the life of Heather, is the fact that he says to God, teach us, instruct us, educate us, inform us, give us knowledge to number our days. Now, the Hebrew word for the word number does not mean to count, but rather to make each day that you live count. In other words, you need to learn how to get the most out of your life. See, a lot of times we determine a full life by the number of years that you live. But I want you to know it's not how long you live, it's what you do with the days you have to live. Because the object is to get the most out of each day. Because each day that God gives you is a blessing. Each day is a gift. But this word number seems to suggest to be counted or to make yourself accountable. It is to be able to acknowledge. And one of the things I want to suggest about Heather is this.
That is, that she had some values that enabled her to make each day count. You see, I don't want to rust out in life. I want to wear out in life. And the way I want to wear out in life is by giving my life to a cause or for a reason that enables me to make a difference in somebody else's life. Because what I've learned in the 65 years and a few months of my living is this, is that it's not how long, it's what you do while you live. And so for me, as you live your days, as you reflect, as you commemorate, as you celebrate her life, then you need to learn from her. And that is, make each day count, because she lived her life supporting and believing and having a value that enabled her to fight for justice and righteousness. Now, as I think about some of the things we could do, and I know this has been a heavy blow to our community, and yes, haters have been here. Yes, we don't want them here. But we need to take a higher road. And we need to let them know that the 3 lives that were lost this weekend will not be in vain. And one of the ways you can make them not be in vain is to make sure that you do use your life and get the most out of it by touching another life. Well, how do you touch another life? Wouldn't it be wonderful in the Charlottesville, Albemarle County area, that if each one of us adopted a child who cannot read, and that if we made sure that child was on grading on the right level of reading, was on grade reading level in this community, you would have a child. There wouldn't be a child in this community who could not read. And don't you know it would say this about Heather's life? That just as she didn't waste hers, we didn't waste ours. And so for me, I want to get the most out of my life. And one of the things I want to make sure of is that my living is not in vain. The songwriter said it best, that if I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can show somebody they are traveling wrong, if I can teach somebody, then my living shall not be in vain. What will you do with the rest of the days of your life? Will you make a difference in someone's life? Because the bottom line is, you have to decide that either you will rust out or wear out. Let us pray. And now, God our Father, we thank you for the life of Heather. We thank you for her mom, her father, her stepfather. We thank you for her brother, sister-in-law. We thank you for her grandparents. We thank you for everyone who has instilled values in her life. Now, Lord, I pray that you would bless the family, affirm their faith and trust in thee, but above all, remind us that you doeth all things well. Now keep them and bless them. In the name of Jesus, our Christ and soon coming King, we do pray. And all the people gathered here said, amen. I need to ask that everybody would remain seated until the family has exited from the auditorium. The morticians are in charge. Say, ma'am, would you please take your seat? Hold it, hold it. Please be quiet. Please sit down. Ma'am, would you please take your seat? Would you please take your seat? Officer, oh, thank you. After the family, we'll let the governor, lieutenant governor, and the attorney general and their staff be dismissed too. And now may the grace of God, our Heavenly Father, may the love of His Son, Jesus the Christ, may the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit rest, rule, and abide with us henceforth, now, and forevermore. And everybody said, amen. God bless you.
We just finished up a very sad, thoughtful, inspiring memorial service in honor of Heather. We heard from the mother, the father, who made the most painful statements no parent should ever have to go through losing a child. We heard from the grandfather, we heard from friends, we heard from co-workers. It was a very inspirational message. Unfortunately, today is the first of 3 funerals and memorial services that we will have to attend here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Today is Heather. On Friday, we will have Trooper Burt Bates's funeral, and then on Saturday, Lieutenant Jake Cullen's funeral. It is a very tough week for the Commonwealth of Virginia. But the message today that we heard from everybody who spoke, and the message that we have tried to convey, is that now is time for healing. It is time for reconciliation. We need to go forward. We need to put the hatred behind us, the bigotry. We need to come together, as Heather's mother spoke about. To make her life impactful, we need to go forward. As she said, there's a blood bank going on right now. As Reverend Edwards spoke, you really want to make a difference, you got to make each day something special. It means you got to help someone else. Adopt a child who cannot read today. And I'd want that to be the message for all of us in Virginia, and I'd like that to be the message for all Americans. We got to move forward together. We've got to stop the rhetoric. We've got to stop the language. We've got to work together. Our nation is a nation of immigrants. It is that great mosaic tile that has made us the great United States of America. And as we go forward from this memorial service, let Heather Heyer be an inspiration to all of us to do good, to put your hand out, to help one another, to help someone else's lives. And that's how we will continue to move forward. But we have to do it in a unified fashion. We have to work together. People are entitled to their comments, their dissent, but we need to do it in a respectful manner. We need to come together as one under the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you.
Will you commit to removing all Confederate monuments? Will you commit to removing all Confederate monuments?
This was a very powerful thing, and I'm so proud of our governor. Ann and I are so proud of the mayor, grieving for this community, inspired by Heather and her family. There's a beautiful spiritual that says, I've come a long way, Lord, a mighty long way. I've come a long way, Lord, a mighty long way. I've borne my burdens in the heat of the day, but the Lord has made a way. We know this in Virginia. Virginia is a place of scar tissue, folks. We've experienced hatred. We've experienced division. We've experienced racism. That is a sad but undeniable part of our history, but we've come a long way. We've come a long way under enlightened leadership. We've come a long way fighting back the divisions and bigotries of past eras. We've become that state for lovers. We've become that commonwealth, that community in recent years. Not that we're perfect in anything, but we've put away the evils and wrongs of the past, and we're moving ahead. And there are people who want to bring us back to it. Many of them who are not even from the Commonwealth, but they want to haul us backward. But what Heather's life shows, what this community shows, what Virginia shows is we're not going back. We will not go back to days of hatred and bigotry and division. We're not going back. And no matter who tries to take us back, or no matter who emboldens those who would try to take us back, we are not going backwards. This community of Charlottesville and this Commonwealth of Virginia, we are facing forward to be loving, to be open, to be welcoming, to be tolerant. That's what Heather's life means, and we will honor her if we continue and even accelerate that progress here in the Commonwealth. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you.
You condemn the violence on the right. Why not the left? Why not remove all Confederate monuments from the state of Virginia? Why not remove all Confederate monuments from the state of Virginia? Why not remove all Confederate monuments?
Hi, guys. If you're joining us on YouTube, thanks for following our stream today. This is Fox 5 Live here at the Fox 5 DC Digital Newsroom. I'm joined by Mike Bischoff, one of our photogs. He hasn't gone out on assignment yet today, but he's just helping me out in the room today. Obviously, a very emotional, solemn ceremony there for Heather Heyer, honoring her, the 32-year-old who was killed in Charlottesville this weekend. And then we heard from the governor, Terry McAuliffe, and Senator Tim Kaine as well. If you guys are new to our stream, we were just finishing up rolling this out on Facebook. That's why we paused it with a still shot, and now we're back in the newsroom. So we're going to be jumping around to some varied live news today. That's what we do here at Fox 5 Live. Whatever is live and breaking for you guys, we change it up, whether it be politics or arts, anything. And so we're hearing from our box sort of what sources are coming in as we speak. So Roger and Danielle, everybody, thanks for commenting on the chat, guys. Feel free to comment, question on the live chat as you see fit. If you have any thoughts, we're going to sort of switch around to see what's coming in right now. Right now, there's a presser in Los Angeles coming from Union Station in Los Angeles about the metro system there. And also we're waiting on, I'll give you a little bump shot here, Vice President Pence will be speaking with the president of Chile down in South America. As you know, if you've been watching the stream or maybe following his trip, he's doing an international trip to South America, met with the president of Argentina yesterday. We brought that to you guys live on our stream, so we'll try to hit this one as well when it comes up and bring you this joint press conference as well. For now, thank you guys for your comments, and we're going to go over to Los Angeles to check into this Union Station Metro presser that's going on live right now. If things change, just be aware. This all is raw and unedited feed. It is just what we have coming in live. So it is as you see it, so you can get your live news during the midday hours here. All right, we're going over to Los Angeles, guys, and then we'll jump down to South America when that one comes in.
Ms. Pelosi, let me just say that we know that transportation infrastructure is a matter of national significance. I can't think of something that touches more lives than transportation, maybe healthcare, but it touches everyone's life. What we have talked about constantly is what I call the three-legged funding and financing stool. And that three-legged funding and financing stool is local initiatives, Measure M, the federal involvement with federal dollars, and the private sector involvement. Now, those three things must be in place to realize projects for the most part. And the private sector stool is pretty strong because we know that the private sector is willing to invest money in infrastructure. We know that, and they're looking for projects. We know that last year, 70% of the local initiatives were successful in this country, 70%. Now, Measure M is the most comprehensive measure in the country. When you talk about the highway portion, the transit portion, keeping fares affordable for seniors and youth and the disabled and state of good repair, all those things. The third leg of that stool has been wobbly, and that is the federal portion of that stool. Now, I may get in trouble here with members of Congress, but when we talk about a long-term transportation bill, Measure M is long-term. When we talk about the federal transportation bill, it's at the most maybe 6 years or so. And so certainty becomes very, very important when we talk about funding and projects and all of that. And so my ask would be is we need certainty. We need a real long-term transportation bill. The other big piece of this, I want to talk a little bit for a minute on the workforce piece, because I think that becomes the most important thing. Now, you know, we can have folks as flag people on our projects with no skills, or we can do what we're doing right now at Metro, which will be a national model throughout the country, and build a career pathway where we're working with the community colleges to address the hardest to fill disciplines and positions in transportation. And that is what we're doing. We went to our board in June with a plan to start a school, a transportation school, grades 6 to 12. We are going to start that school. That is how important this is in terms of putting people in the pipeline to get ready to do these jobs. Our biggest concern with 40% of even Metro's employees at retirement age right now, and 60% of folks at Metro, the 10,000 employees at Metro, over the age of 40 years old. And so this becomes a national emergency in my mind to put together the capacity and the qualified workforce to actually work on the projects that we need to work. Lastly, I would say, I was reading something that talked about in the next 20 years, 80% of the world's population will live in the urban cores of cities around the world. Now, our infrastructure and infrastructure around the world is not ready to accommodate that increase of people coming to the urban cores. Whether you talk about sewage systems, water, transportation, we will need a qualified workforce in this country. We're starting right here in Los Angeles with regard to a model that can be taken and exported around the country with this career pathway. We will be, I believe, not only the infrastructure capital of the world, but we will also be the national center of excellence in terms of the qualifications and the qualified workforce that we have in this country.
I know we hear a lot about generals who are in charge these days. For those of you who don't know, Phil Washington was in the United States Army before. He rose to the highest enlisted rank, which is Command Master Sergeant, and I'll take a Command Master Sergeant over a general any day. He is the finest transit agency leader in this nation. But to that end, let me just add a couple things to what he said. This is a real moment, Madam Leader. I mean, we hear in the national conversation right now all this rhetoric about American jobs. This isn't just about fixing our lives. When we go to the Port of Los Angeles to make those investments, there's not a single American company to do that. When we're building these rail cars, we welcome foreign investment, but they're foreign companies.
Guys, I think our shot might have frozen on that LA Metro presser. If we do get that back, we're going to bring that back to you. But I just want to alert you, if you're new to our stream, welcome to the channel, guys, at Fox 5 Live out of Washington, D.C. This is the Digital News Desk. And Mike Bischoff's in studio, photog and friend. He's going to be going out on another thing today, I guess. Sure. So he's just kind of observing and hanging out. If you guys are interested, if you like our channel, you want to see more live and breaking news throughout the week, press that red button that says subscribe right below our faces here. And you can be part of our channel, part of our community, and chat along with us during the weekdays as we bring our show to you. We're getting an alert right now, so I'm going to see what we're going to jump over to. Like I mentioned, we are going to be going over here shortly to see the Vice President. He'll be speaking with the President of Chile down in South America. That's coming up shortly. But before we do that, I want to show you a really cool event that happened in D.C. this morning, guys. The Smithsonian Museum of American History has some new baseball memorabilia. Actually, Mike, this might be up your alley. Kind of into it, right? Check out, this is really some cool stuff. The camera kind of goes on to, obviously you can see some memorabilia from Yogi Berra, Ted Williams, among others, are now in the museum. This is kind of a fun piece, I thought. And like I said, this was from earlier this morning, so one of our photographers got some of this footage, and then there's a little press conference too describing sort of what this is all about. So we're going to kind of let this play out for a little bit while we wait for some of the other live events that I was telling you about. And let me know your thoughts, guys, in your comments. As always, you can join in on the chat. I'm going to bring you some more information on this in just a second. So yeah, guys, a little more on the detail here. The National Museum of American History accepted 14 artifacts used by baseball legends like Willie Mays, as you see here, Yogi Berra, Ted Williams, among others. Bats and gloves from the 50s. Some Babe Ruth stuff, I think, was in there. Super high-tech cleats from back then, right? How high-tech could they have been?
Glove hasn't changed much.
I know, but yeah, right. The glove has not changed much, and it's America's obviously favorite pastime. Joining, more stuff for this sports collection, which is the coolest museum. It's one of the awesome ones here in DC. They're all pretty cool. Look at that old Topps card. I love it. My brother was a big fan of collecting those. If you guys have thoughts on this or comments, or maybe you were a collector, let us know in the comments. Lots of uniforms and equipment. Roberto Clemente, stuff from Yankee Stadium. There's some Cardinals stuff. It's a mix of stuff, and it kind of, I think it appeals to a lot of people. They had a little ceremony this morning, and following some of this footage, there is a press conference that I will bring to you guys, and then we'll break in with any breaking news or anything that comes of precedent, guys. But we'll jump over to Vice President Pence when he starts up. But this is really cool to me. I definitely wanted to see this, so I'm showing it to you guys. Just happened moments ago in the earlier morning hours at the National Museum of American History here in D.C. So check it out. Check out some of the cool memorabilia that you guys can see if you're local or if you come up here. Not too hard to get down there. Free, Smithsonian Museum. And new gear. I know a lot of people that would be interested in this, and I think I'll maybe swing by myself. So check out this video, guys, and it'll be followed by a press conference that we'll bring to you as well.
representatives of the diplomatic corps of the U.S., dear friends, today we received the Vice President of the United States, Michael Pence, in our country, and his visit is an example of the strength of our ties. It's an expression of interest of working with Chile in a broad agenda of regional, multilateral, and national issues. The relationship with the United States is strategic, politically and economically. We share views on democracy, human rights, and opening of markets. And today we've approached different issues of interest. Among them, the program related to visa waiver. U.S. and Chile, the only country of Latin America of the 38 states beneficiary of the program. And this has involved that after 3 years of coming into force, more than 400,000 tourists of Chile have gone to the United States. With the Vice President Mike Pence, we have discussed our sound trade and economic relationship within the FTA subscribed by both countries. And this agreement has more than 1 decade. 100% of the products is tariff-free. Likewise, the agreement provides access to services guaranteeing intellectual property rights and incentivates investments of the U.S. in different sectors of our economy. In addition to that, we discussed our very fruitful political relationship, underlining our ties not only federally and with different states in areas like energy, science, technology, and renewable energies. We are discussing with academia and researchers. And also we have reaffirmed our interest and commitment to work jointly with countries of the Northern Triangle of Central America and Haiti in order to cooperate for institutional strengthening and governance. Likewise, we have spoken about the peace process of Colombia, a country that has received Vice President Pence. Chile has been fully committed to support Colombia in all of its projects to create peace and well-being for its citizens. And also in Latin America, allow me to refer to Venezuela, something that we have also discussed. Chile, like 11 countries of the region, subscribed the Declaration of Lima a week ago, and this explains our ways to contribute to restore democracy in Venezuela through a peaceful and negotiated way out. There is high concern for the levels of violence and humanitarian crisis experienced by Venezuela, generating a tremendous wave of migration to neighboring countries. Chile will do its utmost to support Venezuela to find a peaceful way out, but Chile will not support military interventions nor coup d'etat. After sanctions, we'll support all those adopted by the Security Council of the UN. After sensitive issues, Chile has expressed in General Assembly, Security Council, and OAS its concern for the nuclear weapons program of Northern Korea. It calls to renew all the diplomatic efforts and conversations, tripartite, Korea, North, South Korea, China, the Russian Federation, in order to have nuclear Korean peninsula without nuclear weapons. And also in our Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, SPA, that will be held in Chile in September next. And Chile will be the venue of the next meeting of APEC 2019. And on that occasion, we hope to have all the collaboration of the United States. Thank you very much. Now we invite and recognize His Excellency Vice President of the United States of America, Mr. Michael Pence.
President Bachelet, thank you for your words and for your warm hospitality that you've shown to me and my wife on our very first visit to Chile. It's a great honor to join you here at the historic La Moneda Palace. So thank you again. I'm here today on behalf of the President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump, to reaffirm to you and the people of Chile the strategic partnership and valued friendship between the United States and Chile. Madam President, Chile is a beacon of freedom in the Western Hemisphere, and the United States of America is proud to call you our partner in prosperity and security, and we are proud to call Chile our friend. Under President Donald Trump, the United States will always put the security and prosperity of America first. But as I hope my presence today demonstrates, America first does not mean America alone. As President Bachelet and I discussed today, the security and prosperity of our two countries are deeply intertwined and have been so for generations. Just over 4 decades ago, Chile reoriented its economy on a free market foundation. The result was nothing short of extraordinary, the miracle of Chile. Millions rose out of poverty, living standards soared for the Chilean people, and Chile's embrace of free markets ultimately gave rise to a free society overall. And today, Chile is a flourishing democracy with a flourishing free market economy. Chile's continued success is inspiring. And Madam President, your country's excellent example has moved your neighbors across Latin America to enact their own market-based reforms to spur growth and generate prosperity for their citizens. Your example shines for all in the Western Hemisphere to see, and it's an honor to be with you today. And Chile's embrace of freedom has brought this country into a closer relationship with the United States. In fact, Chile is the only Latin American nation to participate in the U.S. visa waiver program, a sign of the high standards that define Chile today. Madam President, as we discussed, under your leadership and that of President Trump, we will continue to strengthen the bonds between our nations, especially in terms of commerce. Today, our two-way trade in goods and services totals nearly $30 billion, with a $4.1 billion surplus for the United States. And the United States has been Chile's largest source of foreign direct investment for years, while Chileans have invested $414 million in our country in recent years, in mining, forestry, banking. U.S. exports to Chile support some 93,000 jobs in the United States. This is a remarkable story of success, and it stems in large part from our free trade agreement that you just mentioned, signed in 2003. It's caused trade between the United States and Chile to soar by more than 350%. In many ways, the U.S.-Chile Free Trade Agreement is a model of a mutually beneficial agreement between two nations. But, as I discussed today with President Bachelet, we believe it would be important for Chile to take steps to comply with the agreement's intellectual property rights chapter to ensure a fair and level playing field for U.S. companies. We also believe such actions will bring renewed economic benefits to both our countries. Now, tonight, I will address two institutions that epitomize the deep and long-standing commercial ties connecting our two nations, the American Chamber of Commerce in Chile, which is kicking off its centennial celebration this year, and the Association of American Chambers of Latin America, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary. There, I'll speak to businesses that are already and are ready to invest even more in Chile and across the wider region. But as Chile well knows, security is the foundation of our prosperity. And Madam President, you know that the United States is truly grateful for Chile's leadership in promoting regional security in partnership with our country. Today, I thank your President for her strong leadership and consistent statements about the provocative behavior by the regime in North Korea. The United States is grateful for Chile's support to promote peace and stability in a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. As President Trump has made clear, the era of strategic patience is over. With regard to North Korea, all options are on the table, and the United States will continue to bring the full range of American power, economic and diplomatic, until North Korea abandons its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. With the strong leadership of President Donald Trump, our administration has been marshaling the support of nations around the world. And as the President acknowledged this morning, we are beginning to see progress in dealing with North Korea's provocations and pursuit of a nuclear and ballistic missile program. But more must still be done, much more. As President Bachelet and I discussed today, the United States places great importance on the ongoing diplomatic isolation of the Kim regime. And we strongly urge Chile today And we urge Brazil, Mexico, and Peru to break all diplomatic and commercial ties to North Korea. We would especially welcome Chile reclassifying exports of Chilean wine, as the President and I discussed, reclassifying the wine as a luxury good under current U.S. sanctions to prevent North Korea from obtaining these commodities and converting them into hard currency that support the regime. Closer to home, here in our hemisphere, there's another rogue regime, and a tragedy of tyranny is playing out before our eyes in Venezuela. As President Trump has said, in his words, the Venezuelan people are suffering and they are dying. I saw firsthand, talking with refugees during my visit to Colombia, refugees from Venezuela. I heard about the grinding poverty, how families cannot find the food and medicine they need to survive, how innocent children are literally perishing every day from starvation and deprivation. Let me be clear. The once free people of Venezuela are being forced to endure that fate by the brutality of the Maduro regime. Venezuela is sliding into dictatorship, and as President Trump has said, the United States will not stand by as Venezuela crumbles. President Trump has said that a stable and peaceful Venezuela is in the best interest of our entire hemisphere. And Madam President, I know that you agree with that strongly. Be assured that we will continue to stand with free nations across our hemisphere until democracy is restored for the Venezuelan people. Madam President, President Trump and I are grateful for Chile's leadership in condemning the Maduro regime, and we recognize Chile and 11 other countries for signing the Lima Declaration just last week, sending a powerful message that the free peoples of the Americas will stand with the Venezuelan people and stand up to their oppressors. But President Trump and I call on Latin America to do more. And know this, the United States will continue to bring the full measure of our economic and diplomatic power to bear until democracy is restored in Venezuela. As President Trump has said just a few days ago, the United States has many options for Venezuela. But the President also remains confident that working with all our allies across Latin America, we can achieve a peaceable solution to the crisis facing the Venezuelan people. Madam President, as I assured you today in our meeting, I assure you now, what we do for Venezuela, we will do together. We all live in the same neighborhood. We succeed when our neighbors succeed. We struggle when our neighbors struggle. And so we will continue to act together to support the people of Venezuela in their fight for freedom. And I believe with all of my heart, the Venezuelan people will be free once more and their democracy restored. The people of the United States and the people of Chile know that freedom is the source of our prosperity and security. And Madam President, I'm confident that Chile will continue to be a model of freedom that shines throughout the Western Hemisphere and the wider world. And know that the United States cherishes our friendship with the Chilean people. And even now our bond is growing, and our security and prosperity are advancing hand in hand. And I have faith that together, the United States and Chile will continue to achieve great progress for our people and our hemisphere. President Bachelet, I thank you again for your hospitality. It is an honor to be with you today, and I look forward to our continued discussions.
El vicepresidente ha solicitado poder tener unos minutos con la prensa de Estados Unidos, así que lo vamos a dejar a él para que pueda referirse a unos temas que quiere referirse. I'm going to leave you now for a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Great. Louise Rednowski. Could you come again? I'm sorry. Thank you. You can come here, Louise. You could use it, sure.
Mr. Vice President, on North Korea, do you believe that other countries, including China, should take the same steps as the Latin American countries that you urged to do so today?
President Trump sent me to Asia Pacific earlier this year, and he sent other representatives of our administration to send one clear message to North Korea, and that is that the era of strategic patience is over. Literally for decades, the world community has practiced a patience with North Korea in the hopes that they would someday abandon their nuclear and ballistic missile ambitions. And all along the way, North Korea has simply used delay and used feigned negotiations to continue to, in their headlong rush, to obtain usable nuclear weapons and a ballistic missile program. And the president's made it clear that those days are over. We truly believe that it's imperative that the regime in Pyongyang understand that all options are on the table. The United States of America will simply not permit a rogue regime in North Korea to possess usable nuclear weapons that can reach the continental United States and threaten our people. But that being said, we believe that the ongoing economic and diplomatic pressure is being brought to bear by our allies in the region, by allies here in Latin America, and renewed pressure by China itself is resulting in what we believe represent glimmers of hope that we can achieve by peaceable means that which nations around the world have sought on the Korean Peninsula now for decades. My call today here in Chile and our efforts with regard to Brazil, Mexico, and Peru is simply to call on our friends in this hemisphere and call on nations around the world to continue to use the economic and diplomatic tools that they have to further isolate North Korea. We truly do believe that we are seeing progress, which I mentioned the president acknowledged this morning. But more needs to be done, and it is our hope that Chile, Brazil, Mexico, and Peru will join us in breaking all diplomatic and commercial ties with North Korea. And as that isolation economically and diplomatically continues, the hope for a peaceable solution and a nuclear-free Korean peninsula, we believe, becomes more attainable.
Diplomatic ties, do you mean that there shouldn't be embassies within North Korea or ambassadors to North Korea? And are you concerned that given that the threat to Guam was withdrawn essentially yesterday, your comments today could ratchet the situation up again?
The policy of the United States is that we are working with nations around the world to isolate North Korea economically and diplomatically. At present, Chile essentially has if I describe it correctly, they essentially have a joint arrangement of their diplomatic relations with China and with North Korea. But to the credit of Chile, they have not presented credentials for the last 4 years. And I requested President Bachelet today simply to terminate that relationship formally. We believe that that will facilitate a peaceable outcome. We want North Korea to understand there is a cost among the family of nations to their ongoing provocations. As the president did today, we welcome the statements of the Kim regime this week with regard to Guam. But our objective is clear. It is a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. And we want the regime in Pyongyang to permanently abandon its nuclear and ballistic missile programs and ambitions. And we'll continue to bring pressure to bear till we achieve that goal.
Next is Phil Rucker, Washington Post.
Phil.
Mr. Vice President, we appreciate you taking a couple questions, so thank you. The remarks made by President Trump yesterday about the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia, alarmed many Americans, including Republican supporters. Do you agree with the president that there were good people among the white supremacist protesters and that there was blame to be had on both sides? And more broadly, sir, do you believe that Confederate statues should be removed as is happening in many cities across the South? Or do you agree with the president that the Confederate General Robert E. Lee should be considered in the same pantheon as George Washington?
What happened in Charlottesville was a tragedy. And the president has been clear on this tragedy, and so have I. I spoke at length about this heartbreaking situation on Sunday night in Columbia. And I stand with the president, and I stand by those words. But today, while I'm here in Chile, our hearts are in Charlottesville. Because just a few short hours ago, family and friends gathered to say farewell to a remarkable young woman, Heather Heyer. And we've been praying. We've been praying for God's peace and comfort for her family and her friends and her loved ones. And we're also praying that in America that we will not allow the few to divide the many. The strength of the United States of America is always strongest, as the president has said so eloquently, when we are united around our shared values. And so it will always be. But let me say, it's about the strength of the United States of America that the president sent me here to Latin America. And as we prepare to end our trip a little bit early tomorrow, after we stop in Panama, I leave here greatly encouraged that across South America and Central America, and with the United States and Canada, that this is a new era here in the New World. Chile is a shining example of a nation that first chose economic freedom decades ago and now is experiencing a vibrant democracy. And it's inspiring nations across Latin America who have followed Chile's lead. And I return from this trip more encouraged than ever that not only will our commerce grow, strengthening jobs and opportunities in America, strengthening prosperity across Latin America, but I truly do believe that the unity that I have experienced in our determination to ensure that we will not permit a failed state in Venezuela in this hemisphere is more true than ever. The determination, Phil, that I have heard among the nations that I've visited about ensuring that we stand with the Venezuelan people, that we bring the full measure of economic and diplomatic power to bear until democracy is restored, has truly been inspiring. I've made it clear that, as the president has, that the United States of America has many options. We reserve those options to advance the security of the United States with regard to Venezuela. But I will return home tomorrow more confident than ever that freedom-loving countries across Latin America, along with the United States, can continue to bring pressure to bear, the kind of pressure that President Bachelet and I discussed today, in increasing measure onto Venezuela and create the kind of conditions where we see democracy restored. So thank you very much. Thank you all.
Señoras y señores, de esta manera damos por finalizada esta declaración a la prensa. Agradecemos la presencia de cada uno de ustedes y les deseamos tengan muy buenas tardes.
Thank you, and we appreciate your attendance. Good afternoon.
All right. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed that joint news presser, joint news conference in the country of Chile, where Vice President Pence is, he just noted, returning back to the United States tomorrow. So he's cutting his trip a little early. Interesting to note his comments on Charlottesville there at the end, not even directly answering that question about his thoughts on President Trump's words or the removal of Confederate statues, but definitely said something in honor of Heather Heyer, whose funeral was held this morning, as we brought that to you guys live out of Charlottesville. So if you missed that, you can, at the end of our stream, guys, you can go back and watch that. We opened the show with that. It was a beautiful ceremony, went on about an hour and 15 minutes or so. Just want to welcome you guys to the show. I'm here with Mike. He's hanging out for a while. He's a photog, big-time photog here at Fox 5 DC. I'm Molly Nevola in the Fox 5 digital newsroom. And hey, Texas. Hey, Stig. Good to see you guys on, the regulars. We're back with just some, going around the country to see what's live and breaking. And right now, there is a press conference going on in Los Angeles with Nancy Pelosi. And this has been sort of in and out of our feed, but right now it is going on. And I just got a little information on it. Nancy Pelosi is in LA speaking. We're going to check in with her to see what that's all about. This is live, and understand this is all just raw, unedited feed that's coming into us here at the station. All right, let's go over there, and then we'll bring it back inside when we're done with that.
Well, we thought, almost every conversation I've had with the president has contained a part of it about infrastructure, right from the very first one, a couple of days after his election, and right then a couple of days after his inauguration, and since then. We had anticipated that we would have seen an infrastructure initiative much sooner. I remind that when President Obama was president, 1 week and 1 day after his inauguration, we passed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. 1 week later, the Senate passed it. 4 weeks after his inauguration, it was signed into law, creating or saving 3.5 to 4 million jobs. We haven't seen an initiative yet. We even thought we might see one yesterday, but we didn't. So hopefully it will be soon. Again, the Republican leadership in the Congress is saying we're waiting for the president's initiative. We're not waiting. We're working on proposals that hopefully, as in the past, have had bipartisan support.
One of the main themes of the last election was really focusing on creating jobs, right? Creating jobs, getting people the skills necessary to fulfill those jobs so that they have a better future. And we haven't really seen that. We haven't seen a proposal to invest into the infrastructure, to invest into the workers so that they can have the skills to fill these jobs that can be created by this massive investment. That's what we're looking for. And most of the legislative leadership that I've seen so far has been within Congress. And I think that there's no reason why Congress itself, the Democratic leadership and the Republican leadership, can't come up with our own infrastructure package and plan and then push that through the legislative process. It seems like the White House has a hands-off approach to legislation anyway, so I suggest that we get to work and pound something out.
One of the things that you stress off of this hallmark process from the administration in the past, I think the American people are trying to ask themselves to a better scale. What is the hallmark process of a better scale? What can you point to say this will be done?
Well, thank you for that question, because infrastructure is a very important part of it, for the reason that there are jobs right here in our country for everyone, everywhere in the country. There are trillions of dollars, according to the American Association of Civil Engineers, trillions of dollars of deficit in terms of roads, bridges, water projects, the high-speed rail, mass transit, broadband, and the rest. So what we're saying is this has not been partisan in the past. These are jobs that are here in the U.S. that nobody can offshore or send overseas in any way or outsource. And this really has to be a hallmark, as it was, again, historically, for American presidents. President Obama had an agenda. When the Republicans took over, they curbed the enthusiasm of it, but we did end up, under Senator Boxer's leadership, working with the Republicans with an infrastructure bill, but we need to do much more. So our plan is about creating the good-paying jobs. The most important way is infrastructure. preparing for infrastructure is to build the human infrastructure. That is the education that Phil Washington and Ruben and Jacqueline represent here today. So the education piece of it is, and the training piece of it is very important. There's millions of jobs right now in the country that are unfilled because people think they need a college degree. Half of them do not require that. We have to, though, connect the private sector, the academic sector, with the talent that we know we have. But the infrastructure piece is central to our better deal. Yes. Well, first let me say that, as I said earlier, we were anticipating an announcement about infrastructure yesterday. We'd have hoped to have had it be more collaborative, but nonetheless welcoming an infrastructure announcement. What we saw yesterday was the president clearly demonstrating that he doesn't know right from wrong, true from false, American patriotism from white nationalism. Very sad for our country. Well, the issue of impeachment is one that I have not promoted. I believe that as one has served a long time on the Ethics Committee, it's about the law and the facts. The law and the facts. We have investigations that are going on. I think we should have an outside independent commission to investigate what is happening there. But because we don't like, the president doesn't know right from wrong, true from false, or patriotism from nationalism, is not necessarily grounds for impeachment. But if he crosses the line in terms of obeying the law, then we'll see. But I think you hear a deafening silence from most of my Republican colleagues in terms of identifying the president's comments yesterday. I hope that we will hear more from them.
Thank you for the question, but I want to give other people an opportunity. Right here.
I mentioned that we have a list of shovel-ready projects at the County of Los Angeles, well over $1 billion worth of repairs in waterways, highways, and infrastructure. We can create about 12,000 jobs. We do need additional money. We know that the county, we're going to benefit from some transportation money that just got approved through Senate Bill 1, but that isn't nearly enough of the funding that we need. So our appeal today really is about making sure the public will help us persuade this administration to help us provide the funding to put middle-class people back to work, invest in those savings by also creating opportunities for young people to have those jobs, and to make sure that our highways, our cargo, and everything is taken care of, and that they are safe, and that we have some semblance of knowing that we have support from the federal government.
Yes, let me just quickly go down the list. We have a tactical plan that we have presented to the LA Metro Board of Directors that shows all the projects and the sequencing of those projects. We are building the line out west, the purple line. We're building that in sections. The first section, or the first 4 miles of that line, is already under construction, about 30% right now. Section 2, which is the next 2.5 miles of that particular line, we just awarded a contract to. And Section 3 of that line The last 2.5 miles to UCLA and to the VA Center, we are putting out a tunneling contract for that right now. In terms of the airport connector, we are moving with that on the environmental processes. We are doing the Sepulveda Pass. We're about to put out a feasibility study on it. We are moving on the West Santa Ana branch right now with a project development agreement. All of these projects are becoming shovel ready. We have many that are shovel ready now. And let me just say that many of those projects have federal funding assumptions in it. And so we are working with the current administration to realize those federal funding assumptions as well.
Thank you. Another president, President Lincoln, said public sentiment is everything. And part of our persuading the administration has to come from the public as well. The idea that this administration has come in without an infrastructure plan, what an infrastructure rhetoric, but has then proceeded to cut 17% of the transportation budget, has also cut many of the grants that would be helpful, Purple Line here in Los Angeles and the rest, is it's contradictory. So the fight we are having now that will have a direct impact on the dollars we can bring home to California and to the rest of the country is the fight on the tax cuts. The president and the Republicans in Congress want to have massive tax cuts for the wealthiest and special interests in our country. If they succeed with that, that will give me an opportunity, eliminate the possibility for us to have the major infrastructure investments we need to make, as well as infrastructure for human infrastructure, education, etc. So essential to having the talent to build the infrastructure. So our first fight is to defeat the Republican tax bill as we at the same time make sure the administration knows that the public is aware of what these cuts that they're making mean in their lives, whether it's being stuck in traffic for a 45-minute ride that should take 15, or whether it's having a child with asthma that is worsened because of pollution in the air and the rest. So it becomes very personal. Well, we do because in the appropriations process, we have leverage. And so in the preparations process, we have leverage to make sure that these investments are given priority. On the other hand, though, if they cut the appropriations in order to give a tax cut to the high end, then we're talking about a smaller pie. That's why the tax bill is related to what we expect.
And part of that strategy also is following Leader Pelosi's example of keeping the Democratic Caucus unified. And when we stay unified, we're able to create the divisions within the Republican caucus, which they're not all monolithic, right? You have the Freedom Caucus, and you have different individuals. So they often need the Democratic support in order to push any kind of major spending through. So I want to just kind of stress that if the Democrats stick together, focus on the idea of not through the focus and get away from the politics of distraction and focus on a better deal for the American people. That means more money for infrastructure. That means better paying jobs and then investing in the individuals that have the skills necessary to fulfill those jobs. That's what the Democrats are offering. That's what we're willing to do to work with the Republicans. But it's not it's not guaranteed. You have to have these conversations, and that's what we're willing to do. And that's why we have this round table here today, is to bring different sectors with different points of view together on this important issue. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
What is your advice to those who want to protest
I'm sorry, our presider has adjourned the meeting, but because he asked, that was two of you asked, I've asked the Park Service if they have seriously evaluated their capacity to ensure the safety of people who would attend such a rally. Crissy Field is a place, I go there every time I'm home, quite frequently, with my grandchildren, with my family. Families go there, people visiting our country go there to see nature, to see the Golden Gate Bridge, to see where our troops came home. So a place where the military was headquartered, not a place for Nazi sympathizers to cause trouble. So my understanding is that the permit has been approved but not granted yet. And I have joined with the mayor in asking, and other, Dianne Feinstein and others, what is the preparation that they have to contain this? So to your question about what advice would I give, I would say not to play into their hands. We expect if they're there that other people were there to protest them. I would recommend that they do so with dignity and silence, and not even stoop to the level of disrespect that these people have for our country. Not that our people would, but recognizing the disrespect that these Nazi sympathizers, white supremacists, have for our country. As I said, what more do you need than President Trump's statement of yesterday, where he clearly demonstrated he does not know right from wrong, true from false, American patriotism from white nationalism. And we're not going to get into that fight in San Francisco. We're a city that respects dissent, you know that, freedom of expression, but peace and sense of community. And the safety of that community is what we want to have an answer from the Park Service on. But these people are ginned up. The president has ginned up. They're talking about having events all over the country. So this is a moment of truth for America. Moment of truth for America to say what is unacceptable in terms of public expression. The First Amendment is very important to us. Freedom of expression is something that we value. But it does not give you a constitutional right to shout fire in a crowded theater. They are endangering people. They must be stopped. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys, we're back in the newsroom here as that press conference has ended. Just a little recap as to what that was. I was reading more about this. House Minority Leader, as you saw, Nancy Pelosi speaking from Los Angeles. This is outside of Union Station Metro, the transportation system there in LA. And she was holding this press conference with the LA Metro CEO, Philip Washington, to highlight the Better Deal agenda. You can see the guys removing that sign now, that blue sign that says Better Deal, which was unveiled by the House and Senate last month. And this was from Union Station. A little bit of talk on patriotism, white nationalism, sort of a little bit of insinuation of the goings on from Charlottesville, but not much on that there, mostly infrastructure, transportation, and the like from California from Nancy Pelosi. So that's what you just watched. This is all live. Looks like they're taking it down now, but that is a live shot outside of LA's Metro, Union Station. So thank you, Dennis in Texas, for joining on the stream. Thanks for coming on. If you're new to the stream, welcome. We're going to come back into the studio here. I'm Molly Nevola, joined by Mike Fishoff here today. He's one of our photogs just hanging out in the digital newsroom. But keep the chats coming, guys. You can comment all you want, questions and answers and comments on the feed. And if you are not a part of our channel, click that button that says subscribe so you can see when we pop up on your smartphone and get alerts as to when we're up during the week. Typically in the 11 o'clock hour into the afternoon with all the live stuff that you want to see while it happens instead of waiting for later sort of edited pieces to see on the internet. So we are up on YouTube and also on our website, fox5dc.com, if you're interested, if you need to use your web browser for that. I'm going to go back to another piece of video that we kind of started earlier from the Smithsonian History Museum, guys. It's a free, awesome museum in DC, something that I think us as DCers really want to take more advantage of. And they entered in 14 new pieces of artifacts from baseball memorabilia, so America's favorite pastime, all sorts of stuff from the likes of Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Hank Aaron, a bunch of stuff. We saw the memorabilia kind of splayed out, and they had a little press conference on it that we haven't played yet on the show. This was just moments ago, a few hours ago, from the museum in downtown DC. We're going to play that out, guys, and if we have anything else breaking or live come to us, we're going to go right there, of course, as that takes precedence. So check out this video now, this press conference from the Smithsonian this morning.
Try to keep the aisle clear so our news photographers can capture everything. So I'd now like to introduce you to our director, John Gray, who will start our ceremony.
Thank you, Melinda, and good morning and welcome to your National Museum of American History. At this polarized moment in America, when a real understanding of shared American history is so needed, we're working to bring the nation together. Here at the National Museum of American History, our mission is clear. We help people understand the past in order to make sense of the present and shape a more humane future. And so we are organizing the museum around the very things that interest Americans, ideals and ideas, such as democracy, opportunity, freedom, and our distinctive American culture and sports history. Today is a special day. Thomas Tull, our board member, founder and chairman and CEO of Tulco, and founding chairman and former CEO of Legendary Entertainment, is donating 14 extraordinary sports objects to the nation's History Museum to be preserved and shared with the American people for all time. And in a few moments, we'll learn more about the newest national treasures and Thomas's generosity from curator Eric Jentz. We're delighted to welcome special guest Mike Hefner, president of Leland's Auction House, and Secretary Mavis, it's good that you could join us. Thank you and welcome. In 2015, just outside this special room, we opened our new first floor wing on innovation and invention. Then less than 2 months ago, we opened the second floor, the nation we build together, exploring the power of democracy and the history of citizen participation, debate and compromise, and the parallel story of the peopling of our nation. And then, from 2018 to 2020, we will open our new third floor and complete our full transformation of the West Wing by exploring how democracy has shaped our distinctive American culture and our rich sporting history. We're transforming literally half the building, telling the most important narratives of America and sharing the fundamental American ideals and ideas that bind us as a nation and proclaim our national promise and greatest strengths. We use our national sports collection to connect millions of visitors and the American people to American history in the deepest and most personal ways. To understand the history of American sports is to look at American history and explore the triumphs and complexities of our history and our lives. From Muhammad Ali's training robe, from the rumble in the jungle, to Sandy Koufax's glove, the story of American sports underlie America's richest stories from civil rights to politics to every aspect of our democratic culture. So let me conclude by sharing how we are using the power of sports and baseball to make history come alive in personal and deeply meaningful ways. The eminent cultural historian Jacques Barzun famously wrote, "Whoever wants to know the heart and mind of America had better learn baseball." And you can find the passion for America's game in so many facets of our work. Karl Jastrzębski's helmet, who like Sam Musial is the son of Polish immigrants, is in our new exhibition, Many Voices, One Nation, on the peopling of the nation. We have a major ongoing project to document Latinos in baseball from the community level to the major leagues. And we're embarking on a new initiative to explore the vibrant connections between baseball and philanthropy. Thomas, please know how grateful we are and our millions of annual visitors are that you have shared your passion and made this gift to the nation. It is now my pleasure to welcome Eric Jentz, our curator and deputy chair of the Division of Culture and Arts, and die-hard White Sox fan. Eric.
Yeah, it's a little hard to be a diehard White Sox fan this year, but I still love my job here, and I would like to say that it's both my privilege and honor to accept, on behalf of the museum, Mr. Thomas Hall's generous donation to the National Sports Collections. This donation, if you look over the table, includes 14 items given to us from Mr. Tull's one-of-a-kind collection of baseball artifacts and memorabilia. These items include a signed baseball by Babe Ruth in the 1927 New York Yankees, the team whose batting order featured the famed Murderer's Row, a hat and jersey from the Splendid Splinter, Ted Williams, a hat and glove and shoes worn by San Francisco Giants outfielder, Say Hey, Willie Mays. This reminds me, I do not have a nickname, so maybe you guys could get one for me. A lot of ones here. A bat and mitt from Yankee catcher Yogi Berra, and a glove and hat, a glove and bat from former home run champ and Atlanta Brave, Hank Aaron. From the Cardinals, a jersey and glove from the Wizard of Oz, Ozzie Smith, and a jersey from Stan the Man Musial. And last but not least, for our local fans, a glove from famed third baseman and Baltimore Oriole, Brooks Robinson. We are so extremely grateful to Mr. Tull for this wonderful gift, which represents some of baseball's most legendary figures, players who not only impacted their sport, but also their communities and the eras in which they played. These objects will help researchers and visitors explore the connections between baseball and America's history and cultural life. Added to the national collections, they will join items from such historical persons as tennis stars Billie Jean King and Arthur Ashe, boxers Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali, soccer stars Pelé and Mia Hamm, and basketball legends Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Preserved for the benefit of the American people, these collections educate and inspire, revealing the dynamic and vital impact sport has had in shaping an understanding of the American experience. So you can please join me in thanking Mr. Tull for his generous gift. And I'd like to invite him up to officially sign them over to us.
This is kind of a surreal moment for me. I grew up about an hour outside of Cooperstown in upstate New York and have had a lifelong love affair with baseball. And even last summer, just about a year ago right now, my little tiny hometown of Endwell won the Little League World Series by defeating Korea in just a moment of adult pure joy watching those kids play. And so I've had that love of the game my entire life, and it's an honor and a privilege to take some of these artifacts from the game, some from the greatest players to ever walk on a ball field, and give them to the Smithsonian so that people can enjoy them. So thank you very much for coming this morning, and this is a very humbling experience.
And so, Thomas, all I can say is that I hope that all of our board members have the kind of collections that you do and can donate to the national collection. And so on behalf of the American people, because we actually act as stewards for the national collection, we are hugely appreciative, and this is a very important donation for us, and believe me, it will be seen by millions and millions and millions of people as we tell the stories of America. So thank you very, very much. And now I invite everybody to come up and take a look for the very last time without glass to see how these objects actually look. No touching. Melinda?
First, we're going to please indulge us with a few photo ops with our donor, our director, and our curator with the objects. And then we have a couple of news reporters that want to get some close-ups, and then we invite all our guests to see the objects. So, Mr. Tull, and then I know you have a couple of guests, so if we want to add them into the add them into the photos, we will do so. Yes, yes. And you can stand here by the Boston.
So there you have it, guys. The little press conference there at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. Look at all that cool stuff, memorabilia and artifacts. I think it's pretty awesome.
The dude donated.
Yeah, the guy donated. And obviously this is raw video, guys, so it ends, our shot kind of ends here. But we wanted to bring that to you from this morning. Pretty cool stuff if you're a baseball fan. Even if you're not a history fan, it's always cool to see what is donated to that museum. So they're doing a little picture photo op. And that will end it. All right, guys, we're going to bring it back in here. So if you are watching our stream, thanks so much for joining us today, guys. You're watching Fox 5 Live from our digital news desk in D.C. And we're just hanging out here. It's about 1:30 Eastern time. If you guys are on our stream, let me know where you're watching from. I'm curious to see where everybody is and what you think. If you have any thoughts or comments today, feel free to chat. I want to bring you up a live look right now inside Trump Tower, guys. This was the site in New York City where President Trump made his second sort of speech on, rather, it was following a meeting that was about infrastructure, but he made his second speech that pertained to Charlottesville. He talked about Charlottesville in some of the question and answer sessions. And in case you missed it, I'm going to play that out for you guys just to sort of close down our show and just to recap from yesterday. So you can watch it here if you missed it yesterday. This is a live look, though, inside that lobby. There's a bump shot that's there. Cameras just set up just in case to get the kind of comings and goings of who's there and what's happening. But like I said, following a meeting on infrastructure, President Trump made some remarks yesterday. And so I'm going to bring that to you guys. What were we going to say, Mike?
Took some questions and answers.
Took some questions and answers. So I'm going to bring you the live shot of this and then yesterday's speech concurrently so you can kind of just see what was going on there. All right, so check out here. And if we have anything breaking or live, I'll bring it back and we'll shoot you over there. All right, guys, enjoy this speech. In case you missed it, here's President Trump from yesterday.
Hello, everybody. Great to be back in New York with all of our friends and some great friends outside the building, I must tell you. I want to thank all of our distinguished guests who are with us today, including members of our cabinet, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, OMB Director Mick Mulvaney, and of course our Transportation Secretary, who's doing a fabulous job, Elaine Chao. Thank you all for doing a really incredible and creative job on what we're going to be discussing today, which is infrastructure. We've just had a great set of briefings upstairs on our infrastructure agenda. My administration is working every day to deliver the world-class infrastructure that our people deserve and, frankly, that our country deserves. That's why I just signed a new executive order to dramatically reform the nation's badly broken infrastructure permitting process. Just blocks away is the Empire State Building. It took 11 months to build the Empire State Building. But today, it can take as long as a decade and much more than that. Many, many stories where it takes 20 and 25 years just to get approvals to start construction of a fairly routine highway. Highway builders must get up to 16 different approvals involving 9 different federal agencies governed by 29 different statutes. One agency alone can stall a project for many, many years and even decades. Not only does this cost our economy billions of dollars, but it also denies our citizens the safe and modern infrastructure they deserve. This over-regulated permitting process is a massive, self-inflicted wound on our country. It's disgraceful. denying our people much needed investments in their community. And I just want to show you this because it was just shown me, and I think I'm going to show it to the media, both real and fake media, by the way. This is what it takes to get something approved today. Elaine, you see that? So this is what it takes. Permitting process flow chart. That's a flow chart. So that can go out to 20 years. This shows about 10. But that could go out to about 20 years to get something approved. This is for a highway. I've seen a highway recently in a certain state. I won't mention its name. It's 17 years. I could have built it for $4 or $5 million without the permitting process. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but it took 17 years to get it approved, and many pages of environmental impact studies. This is what we will bring it down to. This is less than 2 years. This is going to happen quickly. That's what I'm signing today. This will be less than 2 years for a highway. So it's going to be quick. It's going to be a very streamlined process. And by the way, if it doesn't meet environmental safeguards, we're not going to approve it. Very simple. We're not going to approve it. So this is just, maybe this one will say, let's throw the other one away. Would anybody like it from the media? Would anybody like that long, beautiful chart? You can have it. So my executive order also requires agencies to work together efficiently by requiring one lead agency for each major infrastructure project. It also holds agencies accountable if they fail to streamline their review process. So each agency is accountable. We're going to get infrastructure built quickly, inexpensively, relatively speaking, and the permitting process will go very, very quickly. No longer will we tolerate one job-killing delay after another. No longer will we accept a broken system that benefits consultants and lobbyists at the expense of hardworking Americans. Now, I knew the process very well, probably better than anybody. I had to get permits for this building and many of the buildings. I built all of the buildings.
The most important part, I think,
rich people, they go around making it very difficult. They lobby Congress. They lobby state governments, city governments to make it very difficult so that you have to hire consultants and that you have to take years and pay them a fortune. So we're streamlining the process, and we won't be having so much of that anymore. No longer will we allow the infrastructure of our magnificent country to crumble and decay. While protecting the environment, we will build gleaming new roads, bridges, railways, waterways, tunnels, and highways. We will rebuild our country with American workers, American iron, American aluminum, American steel. We will create millions of new jobs and make millions of American dreams come true. Our infrastructure will again be the best in the world. We used to have the greatest infrastructure anywhere in the world. And today we're like a third world country. We are literally like a third world country. Our infrastructure will again be the best. And we will restore the pride in our communities, our nation. And all over the United States, we'll be proud again. So I want to thank everybody for being here. God bless you. God bless the United States. And if you have any questions, we have, Mick, you could come up here, please. Come on up. Mick Mulvaney. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Why do you think CEOs are leaving your manufacturing council?
Because they're not taking their job seriously as it pertains to this country. We want jobs, manufacturing in this country. If you look at some of those people that you're talking about, they're outside of the country. They're having a lot of their product made outside. If you look at Merck as an example, take a look where, take a look at where their product is made. It's made outside of our country. We want products made in the country. Now, I have to tell you, some of the folks that will leave, they're leaving out of embarrassment because they make their products outside. And I've been lecturing them, including the gentleman that you're referring to, about you have to bring it back to this country. You can't do it necessarily in Ireland and all of these other places. You have to bring this work back to this country. That's what I want. I want manufacturing to be back into the United States so that American workers can benefit.
Why did you wait so long until last week?
I didn't wait long. I didn't wait long. I didn't wait long. I wanted to make sure, unlike most politicians, that what I said was correct, not make a quick statement. The statement I made on Saturday, the first statement, was a fine statement, but you don't make statements that direct unless you know the fact. It takes a little while to get the facts. You still don't know the facts. And it's a very, very important process to me, and it's a very important statement. So I don't want to go quickly and just make a statement for the sake of making a political statement. I want to know the facts. If you go back to my, in fact, I brought it. As I said on, remember this, Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America. And then I went on from there. Now, here's the thing. As to, excuse me, take it nice and easy. Here's the thing. When I make a statement, I like to be correct. I want the facts. This event just happened. In fact, a lot of the event didn't even happen yet as we were speaking. This event just happened. Before I make a statement, I need the facts. So I don't want to rush into a statement. So making the statement when I made it was excellent. In fact, the young woman who I hear is a fantastic young woman, and it was on NBC, her mother wrote me and said through, I guess, Twitter, social media, the nicest things, and I very much appreciated that. I hear she was a fine, really actually an incredible young woman, but her mother on Twitter thanked me for what I said. And honestly, if the press were not fake, and if it was honest, the press would have said what I said was very nice. But unlike you and unlike the media, before I make a statement, I like to know the facts. They don't. How about a couple of infrastructure questions? Say it, what?
CEO of Walmart said you missed a critical opportunity to help bring the country together. Did you?
Not at all. I think the country, look, you take a look. I've created over 1 million jobs since I'm president. The country is booming. The stock market is setting records. We have the highest employment numbers we've ever had in the history of our country. We're doing record business. We have the highest levels of enthusiasm. So the head of Walmart, who I know is a very nice guy, was making a political statement. I mean, ask him how he's doing. I do it the same way, and you know why? Because I want to make sure, when I make a statement, that the statement is correct. And there was no way of making a correct statement that early. I had to see the facts, unlike a lot of reporters. I didn't know David Duke was there. I wanted to see the facts. And the facts, as they started coming out, were very well stated. In fact, everybody said his statement was beautiful. If he would have made it sooner, that would have been good. I couldn't have made it sooner because I didn't know all of the facts. Frankly, people still don't know all of the facts. It was very important, excuse me. It was very important to me to get the facts out and correctly. Because if I would have made a fast statement, and the first statement was made without knowing much other than what we were seeing. The second statement was made after, with knowledge, with great knowledge. There's still things, there's still things that people don't know. I want to make a statement with knowledge. I wanted to know the facts. Okay.
Two questions. Was this terrorism? And can you tell us how you're feeling about your chief strategist?
Well, I think the driver of the car is a disgrace to himself, his family, and this country. And that is, you can call it terrorism. You can call it murder. You can call it whatever you want. I would just call it as the fastest one to come up with a good verdict. That's what I'd call it. Because there is a question. Is it murder? Is it terrorism? And then you get into legal semantics. The driver of the car is a murderer. And what he did was a horrible, horrible, inexcusable thing.
Can you tell us how you're feeling about your chief strategist, Mr. Bannon? Can you
Go
talk
ahead.
about that?
I would echo Maggie's question. Steve Bannon is.
I never spoke to Mr. Bannon about it.
Tell us broadly what you're. Do you still have confidence?
Well,
in
we'll
Steve?
see. And look. I like Mr. Bannon. He's a friend of mine. But Mr. Bannon came on very late. You know that. I went through 17 senators, governors, and I won all the primaries. Mr. Bannon came on very much later than that. And I like him. He's a good man. He is not a racist. I can tell you that. He's a good person. He actually gets a very unfair press in that regard. But we'll see what happens with Mr. Bannon. But he's a good person, and I think the press treats him, frankly, very unfairly.
Do you have confidence? Senator McCain has called on you to defend your National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, against
I've
some of
already
these
done it.
attacks.
I did it the last time.
He called on it again, linking them
Senator
to
McCain?
the alt-right. And
Senator
saying
McCain, you mean the one who voted against Obamacare?
And he said
Who
that
is Senator? You mean Senator McCain who voted against us getting good health care?
McCain said that the alt-right is behind these attacks, and he linked that same group to those who perpetrated the attack in Charlottesville.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm sure Senator McCain must know what he's talking about. But when you say the alt-right, define alt-right to me. You define it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying,
define it for me. Come on, let's go. Define
Senator
it.
McCain defined them as the same group.
Okay, what about the alt-left that came charging at us? Excuse me. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
This is Senator McCain's statement.
Let me ask you this. What about the fact that they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute. I'm not finished. Fake news. That was a horrible day. I will tell you something. I watched those very closely, much more closely than you people watched it. And you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent. Go ahead.
Do you think that what you call the alt-left is the same as neo-Nazis?
All of those people, excuse me, I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also there because they wanted to protest the taking down of a statue, Robert E. Lee. So, excuse me, and you take a look at some of the groups and you see, and you know it if you were honest reporters, which in many cases you're not, but many of those people were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. So, this week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week? And is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop? But they were there to protest, excuse me. You take a look the night before, they were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. Infrastructure question, go ahead.
Should statues of Robert E. Lee stay up?
I would say that's up to a local town, community, or the federal government, depending on where it is located.
Are you against the Confederacy? Race relations in America, and do you think things have gotten worse or better since you took office?
I think they've gotten better or the same. Look, they've been frayed for a long time, and you can ask President Obama about that because he'd make speeches about it. But I believe that the fact that I brought in, it will be soon, millions of jobs. You see where companies are moving back into our country. I think that's going to have a tremendous positive impact on race relations. We have companies coming back into our country. We have 2 car companies that just announced. We have Foxconn in Wisconsin just announced. We have many companies, I say, pouring back into the country. I think that's going to have a huge positive impact on race relations. You know why? It's jobs. What people want now, they want jobs. They want great jobs with good pay. And when they have that, you watch how race relations will be. And I'll tell you, we're spending a lot of money on the inner cities. We're fixing the inner cities. We're doing far more than anybody's done with respect to the inner cities. It's a priority for me, and it's very important.
Mr. President, are you putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane?
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, sir? You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Kill the person. Ever hire Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as the owner. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
White nationalists?
Well, no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly?
No,
I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day, it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final? Does anybody have? You have an infrastructure.
What makes you think you can get an infrastructure bill? You didn't get health care.
Well, you know, I'll tell you. We came very close with health care. Unfortunately, John McCain decided to vote against it at the last minute. You'll have to ask John McCain why he did that. But we came very close to health care. We will end up getting health care. But we'll get the infrastructure, and actually infrastructure is something that I think we'll have bipartisan support on. I actually think Democrats will go along with the infrastructure.
President, have you spoken to the family? Have you spoken to the family of the victim of the car attack?
No, I'll be reaching out.
When will you be reaching out?
I was I thought that the statement put out, the mother's statement, I thought was a beautiful statement. I was telling you, it was something that I really appreciated. I thought it was terrific, and really under the kind of stress that she's under and the heartache that she's under, I thought putting out that statement to me was really something I won't forget. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you plan to go to Charlottesville, Mr. President?
Does anyone know I own a house in Charlottesville?
Where is it?
Oh boy, it's in Charlottesville. You'll see.
Where is it? A winery or something?
It is the winery. I mean, I know a lot about Charlottesville. Charlottesville is a great place that's been very badly hurt over the last couple of days. But I own actually one of the largest wineries in the United States. It's in Charlottesville.
What do you think needs to be done to overcome the racial divide?
Well, I really think jobs can have a big impact. I think if we continue to create jobs, over 1 million, substantially more than 1 million, and you see just the other day, the car companies coming in with Fox, Fox. I think if we continue to create jobs at levels that I'm creating jobs, I think that's going to have a tremendous impact, positive impact on race relations.
And what you said today, how do you think that will impact the racial?
Because the people are going to be working, they're going to be making a lot of money, much more money than they ever thought possible.
Your remarks
and that's going to happen. And the other thing, very important, I believe wages will start going up. They haven't gone up for a long time. I believe wages now, because the economy is doing so well with respect to employment and unemployment, I believe wages will start to go up. I think that'll have a tremendously positive impact on race relations.
Why have bigots been drawn to you, Mr. Charleston, as president? Was Trump Tower wiretap?
So there you have it, guys. That was from yesterday. That was President Trump's statement in its entirety. The press conference was slated after this infrastructure meeting that he had, and then mostly it was a question and answer session, a lot about Charlottesville. So if you missed some of that back and forth, that exchange, we wanted to show that to you here. So that was it. Pretty interesting stuff there from the lobby of Trump Tower, which this is a live look of right now. In case you were wondering, they have a little stakeout camera there. But that is going to do it for us, guys. I'm back here in the studio. Molly Nevola here on your digital news desk. So thanks for watching today. As always, guys, feel free to comment and let us know what you think. We're going to be on again tomorrow, as usual, on Thursday in the 11 o'clock hour. And we'll bring you all the live stuff, breaking stuff, as we have it. You can also follow our Facebook page, guys, too. We clip a lot of things and put it on our page. And, of course, all of our web stories are up to date right there on the Fox 5 DC Facebook page. So join us there. Join us on our website at fox5dc.com. And thanks for watching today, guys. That's going to be it. We're looking forward to an awesome, awesome eclipse coverage next Monday. So if you're wondering about that, be sure to check in on Monday, August 21st, for tons of live coverage of the eclipse. We're going to have people down in the line of totality, people from our station giving us a live report on what's going on and how dark it really gets. And we're going to try to just bring experts in here and talk to a bunch of people, so you don't want to miss it. That's a little teaser for Monday's eclipse coverage. So stay with us, guys. Until then, we'll see you next time on Fox 5 Live tomorrow. Take care. Here's a live look at the Capitol Dome in Washington.